Welcome back to Ion Radio and the Backseat Admiral. Hopefully everyone can hear me. There's about a 10-20 second delay, so in chat, if you're there and you can hear me, let me know. I appreciate it. Today is November 8th, 2021, and we're going to be talking about the 8th episode. It's kind of perfect, 8 on 8. So I'll just wait for someone in chat to give me the thumbs up that we're good to roll. We should be then set to do our talk this evening. People are saying hello. Hey Jan, hey Daniel, how are things going tonight? Okay, thank you Ken for letting me know the sound is good. So just random, I figure this is the place I could probably talk about it. So I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and it's a podcast that was talking about Clone Wars Season 7 when it came out like almost 2 years ago, I believe now. And they just casually mentioned something that I'd never really thought of before, so I figured I'd get the thoughts out now. But they were talking about, what if at the end of the Clone Wars, let's say the Clone Wars happened the way they did, except Order 66 didn't happen and then the Jedi actually won. And they're like, do you think there would have been a Jedi schism at the end of that? And I've never considered that. And if you look at old legend canon for like the old Republic, and how all the wars that are named the same, so don't quote me on it because I'm terrible with Old Republic history of Star Wars, but like they had the I believe it's the Mandalorian War, and the Republic and the Jedi didn't really want to fight the Mandalorian War because they weren't warriors and they'd already been through like a Sith War or a pseudo Mandalorian War or something like that. So that's when Revan and Malak like kind of took a group of Jedi to fight off the Mandalorians, and then right afterwards they had the Jedi Civil War. Again, it could be one of like many Jedi Civil Wars, but the thought was interesting to me. Like, would at the end of the Clone Wars, the differences in the Jedi and their state of mind after that giant war, would have there been another Jedi schism? And who would be on which side? Clearly Obi-Wan is just serving the Republic, and he would have been fine with demilitarization, but someone like Anakin or maybe even Mace Windu would have been all for the continued direct intervention into the Republic as a whole, instead of the Jedi Order just being held back. So I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts on that? You can let me know and I'll probably jump back to it later on, but I never considered that, and I thought it was an interesting topic to think about, because even like the Clone Wars actually touched on that a lot, with the Jedi Padawans that Ahsoka would be running into, not knowing their necessarily place in the universe or the Jedi Order as a whole. And that's even something that Anakin and Ahsoka struggle with throughout the Clone Wars, is, are we really warriors? Are we generals? Are we Jedi? And what that means to be Jedi, and where they would then fall, because clearly Anakin is very much so on the side that he would prefer being more direct interventionist into the galaxy, which I never really read a lot of the New Jedi Order stuff, but apparently that's also a lot of the themes and topics that go into they talk about with the Solo and Skywalker children and things like that. I think it's, don't quote me because I don't know that lore. I kind of like stopped shortly, like time-wise, before the Yuzan Vong War, and just as Luke was setting up his academy. That's kind of the extent of the EU world that I know the most about. But I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. Wanted to throw those ideas out there and see if you guys have ever thought about that, or things like that. So let's transition then into what we're talking about today. So We are talking about Season 2, Episode 8. It's hard to believe that Season 2 is actually almost done, but it's kind of exciting at the same time. So this game, we have two commanders, and then we have Piet, flown by Ken, which I think this is one of the first times he's flown Piet, and then Sato is like one of the most flown commanders by me because he's a puzzle, and I enjoy trying to make that puzzle work. So this fleet is I've actually had this fleet for a long time and just haven't gotten it to the table yet. Months and months and months ago on our Discord, there was a lot of talk about Sato and what type of dice to convert Sato into. And the question was, do we convert Sato into blue dice, or we do it into black dice, and what type of ships are best used for that? And so I actually looked it up. Let me make sure. So this was before our season format changed over. It was one of our last episodes that we did do. It was episode 43, which was Ken flying Akbar and myself flying Sato. And in that, I went about doing a Sato blue dice build. And at the same time, this is how old this list was. I had already designed this list, and I refer to this as Sato Heavy, because it's just Sato Heavy ships. This is actually not my preferred method for doing Sato, so big spoiler, at some point in the near-ish future, you're probably going to see Sato again with a different iteration of ships and how I go about it. It's going to be some of the same squadrons because he works well with squadrons. But this is a Sato black dice heavy build, as I like to call it. So let's take a look at this build, and I'll talk about my decisions I made. So it's two ships, which is super, super risky. I talk about this at the end of our battle report, and this list was really, it would have been way better in 1.5, and I'll explain why, but before 1.5 that is. But it doesn't work as well now. And 1.5 has changed it so this list isn't really effective anymore. So it is an MC-75 ordnance cruiser, because if you're going to play with black dice, and it has 2 ordnance slots, so you can get some good use out of all the black dice that Sato's going to be throwing. So it's an ordnance cruiser. It's got Commander Sato, which Commander Sato allows you to replace 2 of your dice in your dice pool. After you've gathered your dice pool, you can flip 2 of those dice right before you're rolling them to a different color. So what this allows you to do is but you have to have a fighter close nearby. That's like the caveat. So what this will allow you to do is on the MC-75, you can fire then 5 black dice out the front and just switch those blues out for black dice. Or out the side at long range, you can fire 1 red and 2 blacks. And then when you have like concentrate fire and other cards that can add into that, you could then trigger like what I was trying to do, assault proton torpedoes at long range. So it's kind of fun. This has Blissus on it just to try to keep it alive. This also goes into the selection of what objective I chose from Ken, because the MC-75s do not survive very well. They kind of can take like 1 good hit or turn, and anything after that is just going to quickly kill them because of their defense token. They have a brace, a redirect, and 2 contained. So yay, contains. Not very useful. I have ordnance experts because if you're going to be trying to shoot at long range with black dice, you might as well be able to reroll. And the changes to ordnance experts in 1.5 actually kind of align with how Sato works, which is you can only reroll 2 of them. Great. Well, at long range, a red and 2 black dice means I get to reroll both my 2 black dice. Cool. And then this is also an experiment that wasn't related to Sato, but I decided to just throw it in here because I haven't used rapid launch bays recently, and I specifically have not used rapid launch bays with B-Wings. So I figured, why not? Why not throw B-Wings into the mix and drop them in so I can just like ram them, my big ships, into you. drop B-Wings off, do some damage, and then dump all the black dice, and then convert all my other dice into black dice to really get that Sato effect off. So that was kind of the game plan. Electronic countermeasures, because 1 accuracy will just straight out kill the ship. Or in Ken's case, rolling like 6 dice for 8 damage and 2 accuracies will straight out kill the ship. Because contains don't do anything when you're taking 8 damage. Then assault proton torpedoes to trigger black dice critical effects, so play at long range. And then when you get in close and you have just all the black dice you've ever wanted in your life, external racks allows you to put 2 more black dice in. So that's the main ship build. And if you jump over to the next one, it's also an MC-75 with exactly the same things without the commander or the officer. So they're just going to do the same thing. And there's 2 ships. So that's super, super, super risky in the world of pass tokens and things like that. So if you're not like engaging extremely quickly, they're going to just delay. You're going to move in. You're going to get shot to pieces. And then, you get to activate first 1 time, and then you're probably going to blow up. And that's where the flaw of this list kind of comes into. It plays a game that's currently no longer being played. We're in 1.5, so all these cards, like assault proton torpedoes, can happen once. Before 1.5, you could trigger it on both of your attacks. Electronic countermeasures, you need engineering to refresh. So you get to use it once. Rapid launch base requires you to be doing squadrons. And you kind of want to do squadrons anyway with Sato so that you can move your fighters around to get them into position to trigger Sato effects. So you have this dilemma that I'm in, and as soon as I started playing it, I realized how much of not a great list this is, because I'm required to pretty much do all 4 commands at the same time. This ship needs to be going speed 3 to try to close in range. It's not the most maneuverable, so I should probably be doing nav to try to navigate and line up my arcs, because you really need to do a double arc with this. Otherwise, they just use their defense tokens, because you will only be black dice. You're not going to be able to block any of their defense tokens unless you somehow roll super lucky on that 1 red dice. And then you need to be doing engineering to collect tokens, or have something that passes you tokens to redo the electronic countermeasures. But you also need to be doing squadrons to move your fighters around to have them in position to even do Sato in the first place. And then for my case, I have rapid launch base, so I have to do squadrons, or I'm just carrying 2 B-Wings for free points around inside me as a pinata. And you kind of want to do concentrate fire, because more black dice is better. And when you're shooting at long range, having then 3 black dice instead of 2 black dice is significantly better, because that's kind of like where your power is. So you're kind of in this trap of, what do I actually do as a command, because I want to be doing everything, and I don't have any support ships to support my 2 ships, which you really shouldn't be running 2 ships anymore. You should be running at least 3 to 4 activations to stay competitive. So that's kind of why I dislike this fleet. I think it's a fun fleet to play, but it has some major struggles. Like, I will not be ever taking this to any sort of tournament or stuff. Like, I got what I wanted out of this fleet, and I'm good to go. So let's go into fighters. So with Sato, his 2 best friends for playing is Shara and Tycho. And the reasons are, they're speed 5. They're speed 5, they're scatter, so you can just throw them out at long range to be close to the enemy ships, and they're not going to immediately just disappear and die. Tycho has this awesome benefit that he can't be locked down, which is awesome, because then you can't be locked down near you, and then you can just throw him whatever ship you're shooting at if you can keep him as alive as long as possible. And Shara can just lock down an entire fighter wing by herself, because do you really want to get hit by counter 3 with a 75 chance because of crits count as hits that you're going to be countered for 3 damage just for shooting her? So you shoot her, she scatters, she hits you for 3. Pretty awesome, except when you're facing her. So then I have 4 B-Wings that are tucked away inside my ships, so when I get close, I drop the B-Wings on you, and then I get the Sato effect. And I have B-Wings on you. And B-Wings are slow, so they want to be dropped off, because if they're not being dropped off, they'll be there around turn 4. Then my last 2 squadrons are A-Wings, and that's the same thing as the Aces. They're just fast, and with 2 activations and going first, you can always throw one out there, and they can kill it the next turn, but you've already done its effect. So Sato is a trap when you're building, and one of the reasons for him being a trap is because to get a good amount of his effect, you need upgrades to make it worthwhile on ships. And those ships for the Rebels cost a lot, I almost said money, lots of points. And when you're done building your ships, then somehow you need to put in a fighter wing, because Sato requires fighters to be near it. So if you don't have fighters near it, he doesn't do any effect, and then all that building and planning doesn't do anything. So the way I found to make Sato work isn't necessarily building a full fighter wing, like a full 130 odd points of fighters. It's actually to build less than that. And it's all about sacrificing. So if you look at this list, the B-Wings are kind of just extra. But how many turns are you realistically going to be fighting someone? 3 turns. So turn 1 is pretty much always just maneuvering. Turn 2, maybe there's going to be combat, maybe not, but let's just assume there is. Turns 2, 3, 4 is going to be heavy combat, and after that it's just going to be cleanup in 5 and 6. That's typically how all Armada games go. So we need 3 turns that I'm going to have fighters near you. So I plan, though, for 4 to 5. So turn 2, I can throw a generic A-Wing at you. I get my effect. It dies. Turn 3, I throw a different generic A-Wing at you. I get my effect. It dies. Then my 2 aces should be able to survive combined between 2 to 3 turns of just suiciding, which gives me to that lucky number 5. And then the B-Wings that I'm dropping off are just extra. So this gives me a little bit of flexibility, and my fighters are going to die. I've come to grips with it before I've built the list. It's the Sato. He's all about sacrificing, if you know what I mean, if you've seen Rebels. And you just need to be able to trigger it for just that ship's attack and then move on. I only have 2 ships, so probably only one of them is going to be at red range on turn 2. So just throwing a generic A-Wing away for 11 points, getting to attack either a ship or, attacking a squadron a little bit, and then being able to throw my black dice at long range could totally be worth it, especially when I'm hoping that I'm going to get an APT off. So my learning process with this is to not go crazy with fighters, just have the bare minimum you need to trigger Sato. I will explain a little bit more when we get into the way the game went down, what my thought process on that was and how that kind of works. So that's it for my build. The idea is really just to throw black dice, and all my ships are built for that, and then I have the fighters to support it. I've already explained why I don't think it works in 1.5, because I need all the commands, and there's no way to do that. I would need at least another. This is the problem with Sato. Sato works great at 600 points playing against people at 400 points, because that's the only way that you have enough fighters and ships, main battleships, and then enough support ships, and then upgrades to power the black dice or the blue dice or whatever dice you're turning them into. This is especially when you compare them to Kraken or Martuk, and you're like, man, those are so much better because they're just so much easier to pull off. Or even TF. TF has a lot of things that he needs to do as well, and he's easier to pull off than Sato a lot of times. So that's my opinion on that. Okay, so let's go over to Ken's fleet. There is quite a few changes I would make to Ken's fleet. So you have an Imperial 2 Star Destroyer with Piet, a Vanto. I like Vanto, which solves the same things that I was talking about with the MC-75s. They just need tokens to live and do what they want to do. So gunnery teams requires tokens. Electronic countermeasures on here requires tokens. So both of them require tokens, and Piet can help power gunnery teams. Like if you have a token, boom, now you have a dial. Cool. Especially if you're able to give them the tokens to do that. The main thing that I would say needs to change on this is flak guns. So Ken and I had a big talk about it before and after playing the game. Ken's thought on it was he would prefer rolling black dice against my squadrons, and that's the only reason he took it, just to convert his 2 blue dice to 2 black dice. And I argued my point is that blue dice are better because they're at longer range, and you have leading shots. You've already spent the points into leading shots, which is 6 points, which means that you roll both the blue dice, and if they both come up the 50% blank chance, you ditch one of them and you get to re-roll it. So you have a high chance of at least doing 1 damage. While black dice, if you roll the chance that you get both misses, they're both misses, and they're not as long as range. I don't plan on playing the range game with Sato, but against another list, like they could just sit outside of your black range and never get flacked, compared to blue dice, which have a decent range for flacking. Excise 7s is just cruel when you're facing anything besides pretty much the Empire, because pretty much everyone has 1 redirect, and if they use the redirect, it doesn't do anything. So it almost just completely negates an entire type of defense token. Next, we have a decked out Architen. This is Captainita, so you basically replace that contain with a evade, and that allows you to do turbo laser reroute circuits, reinforced blast doors to try to keep it alive, and then Hand of Justice. Hand of Justice, before you reveal a command, you may exhaust this card to choose another friendly ship at distance 1 to 5 and ready one of its defense tokens. It's a decent card. I have very little use for it because I feel like where I position my ships a lot of times for this, it's never necessarily in the right position. Or the ship that I want to use it on doesn't get attacked. And the way Ken had his ships positioned, I would prefer the Architen to be, that's for later talk, but I would prefer it to be out a little bit farther on the side instead of closer in the middle. Then he has 2 Gazantes. They're both kind of set up the same way. One has munition resupply, which solves concentrate fire token issues that we were talking about with 1.5 and needing all that shenanigans, which then works with Piat on the Star Destroyer, because basically then the Star Destroyer, whatever ship you want, can get 2 commands each turn. Plus Vanto. So you have lots of options there. It has reserved hangar deck to bring back fighters. And Suppressor. And Suppressor's decent if you're using your Gazantes as in-close knife fighters. Or someone's in-close knife fighting you. There's the other option. The other Gazante has parts resupply, so this is pretty much to keep the ECM going, and reserved hangar deck to keep a fighter back as well. So on to Ken's fighters. Ken has 4 TIE fighters that are interceptors and 4 TIE bombers for a total of 8 squadrons. This is just a cheap generic, and the Gazantes for the most part should be able to push either your anti-squadron or push your bombers after the anti-squadron have either died or cleared things out. It's a decent wing. So that's it on the builds. Let's actually talk about objectives real fast. And these objectives for me were horrible to choose from. So most wanted, no. I have 2 ships. That's going to be my flagship like 100% of the time, or my other big ship. Like there's no good option there. That's just giving free dice away and points. And do I really want to be trying to chase down a Gazante that's going to have this on it? No. Hard pass. Planetary ion cannon. The ability to hit my ship and exhaust one of my defense tokens when I've already talked about how the MC-75 struggles with taking more than 1 hit makes it even more fragile, and I have 2 of them as my only 2 ships. Not going to take that. So superior positions, even though My bombers are probably going to be shooting your front, and your bombers could possibly get around me is my best option. I have a total of 4 deployments that I'm going to be putting out on the table. Flagship, MC-75, 2 generic A-Wings, 2 Ace A-Wings. Done. Ken gets to see everything that I put down, and he hasn't even finished putting out his fighters yet. So being forced to deploy first doesn't matter for me, because I'm going to be forced to deploy the exact same way anyway. And my idea was to not let a single one of his fighters attack a single one of my ships before I tabled him, so I could take that risk to use that. Like, this is easy for me because I'm already playing superior positions, so the other cards are far more difficult for me to try to go up against. Okay, so if you have any questions right now about our builds or objective selection, let me know. I'm going to take a look through the comments, and then we're going to jump back into the way the game itself unfolded. Okay, let's see. I think because of the poor character design in the prequel, you could do anything with these characters. This is probably talking about how Back to the Jedi Schism. Yeah, they could be whatever we wanted. And then I believe I already answered your why I didn't like this fleet, and it's just because it's in an era that no longer exists. This is a very 1.0 Armada list instead of a 1.5. Good evening, Maxwell. Good evening, Muzzy. Well, thank you. Maxwell says that I did plan my dials quite well. Yeah, I mean, I figured that for the most part I was going to be engaging soon and then taking a lot of shots with the one ship. So if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on it because it's been a while since I've actually watched the game. Nav, squadrons to drop off my squadrons on turn 2, and then engineering, and then my Sato had another I think more squadrons because it was more coming in from behind. That's how I saw the game was going to unfold. And then he probably in that time period shouldn't have been able to wipe out my one thing. So we will get to it. And Ken was coming in quite fast. I think Ken was afraid of me just chomping his ships one at a time, so he wanted to engage everything at once. Shara's counter attack can be brutal. One time I was able to shoot down 4 TIE fighters just with the counter attacks. I've done it, and I've had it done to me. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy snipe. So a lot of my builds that I use for the Imperial, I include a Saber Squadron in, just for the reason she can pretty much one-shot Shara. And when you're in a tournament and someone throws Shara into your Sloane list, it's 0 fun. So being able to gen in and double snipe with Saber is well worth taking those 2 squadrons just to wipe her out. Because, man, she's so cruel, too. It's like, here's 3 damage. Have fun. And anything that's not a hit's an accuracy, so you can't scatter. Even better. What's up, Chromag? William, if Ken used Dengar dropping 2 TIE bombers, what difference do you think it would have made? Almost none. Because I still had all of his squadrons except 1 locked down by 2 squadrons. So Dengar would have given grid out, which would do nothing against the fact that I had multiple squadrons locking him in place. So he wouldn't have been able to move by. It would have given him counter, but I would just not have attacked then. I'll get more into that in a second on why I did what I did with my fighters, and then how Ken and I talked about strategies to avoid having done to him what I did to him in the future. So that's all the questions, so let's jump to the breakdown. So here we go. You can see that I kind of centrally deployed, which I had to because I deployed everything first. And I played it on one side of the obstacles, mainly because that's where I figured Ken was going to sit. So if you look at this, this has created a lane, like 3 different lanes. You have this lane out here, you have this central lane here, and then you have this 3rd lane out here. And if I were to completely centrally deploy right here, I would not be in the central lane. I would be on this outside lane, and I would have to try to maneuver and fly through obstacles. And it's already hard enough to fly at speed 3 to crash into the other forces. So I'm not going to do that. But if you look at it, there's not enough space right here for Ken to get his whole fleet. So there's no reason for me to try to go down this lane because Ken's never going to deploy here. Then you look at this lane over here, and again, this space here is not enough space for Ken to really deploy his fleet. So Ken's not going to be there as well. So this central lane, even though it's offset, I knew this is where Ken was going to be. So it made sense for me to set up here so I can fly quickly into the center lane and then go out from it. Ken then, of course, deployed his fleet inside the center lane because that's what made sense. Like, ooh, I predicted it. So my plan is just to use my ships as battering rams, go in, take that fire because he's going to be able to go without me. I get pass tokens. Woo! I don't need them because I'm going to just be activating as fast as I can. So here we go. Turn 2. Ken has moved up to the station, and that's to try to get shots on me. Otherwise, I would just try to delay and then drop my ships right in front of him, which is what I'm going to do. But it speeds up combat. I have placed all my fighters in a straight line right here, and that's basically to keep any of his stuff from really jumping into me, because if you look here, like range 4 is probably about here, and they would still be engaged with my squadrons where they're sat. But all of his squadrons are bundled up. Awesome. I'm going to pin him there, and he's never going to be able to move them. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, that's what I'm doing. My squadrons are going to jump over there. I don't have to worry about pulling off my Sato ability with my A-Wings in this because I'm just dropping B-Wings in your face when we get close. And my counter squadrons are going to just pin your squadrons down so they can't move. And that's what I do. So as you can see, we've now engaged. I've now maneuvered my MC-75, so I have this sweet, sweet double arc pinning his Star Destroyer there. The problem is this stupid Argoten's right in front of me, double arcing me, so that thing does way more damage than it ever should be allowed to do. I have a fighter that is here, and then if you look closely, I'm going to zoom in. I have my 2 aces close next to each other, so they are double lapping, engaging everything except I believe this TIE Interceptor is only engaged here. So this is why Dengar wouldn't be useful, because Dengar would give these people grit, and grit goes, okay, you can move away from 1 squadron. I got 2, so you're stuck. This is a point that I'm going to bring up. This is how to avoid this happening. And this isn't my original idea. Other people have talked about this a lot. But when you have a strict, these are my squadron fighters, and these are my bombers, you should probably split them into 2 groups. Like if Ken were to have deployed all of his bombers down here and all of his interceptors here, it forces me to make a choice. And it's a difficult choice. Do I pin his bombers or do I pin his anti-squadron? The right answer is always pin the bombers, but that's a different thing. So if I choose to pin his anti-squadron, then his bombers can now move past me, and I'm locked in with those anti-squadrons to bomb my ship. Bad. If I choose to lock in his bombers, then his anti-squadron have a chance to alpha strike into me because they're coming from a different area. So even though I've made the first move into him, he now gets to move into me. And what stinks about that is he'll probably get swarm on all of his things because I'm locking down his bombers, and his bombers can trigger swarm for his anti-squadron to come into it. Then I can't pin it. I don't have enough fighters to pin 2 fighter groups down with this right now. I have enough for this group, and because they're all in the same place, I can lock all of them down with my scatter aces. As you could see in this game how fast my A-wings went down, like that. So if I tried to do that against the 2 different groups, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So yeah, so that's my idea. I was just going to lock these squadrons down, and if those squadrons die, that's fine. I have enough ships now moving through this area with my bombers and my B-wings that I'm like 100% positive that, not that, 90% positive that I'm going to kill both these ships. And when I kill both those ships, the game's instantly done, and it doesn't matter that my squadrons were over here doing nothing. So now I need to reset this. And go to the next one. Okay. So, ooh, did you see that move? That was a big move. Right, let's go back. Shuttle moved a little bit closer. I believe I dropped my B-wings because my fighters were down, just to lock squadrons down again because I don't want to be attacked, because that's annoying. These ships are all super, super injured. My B-wings have deployed and have shot. This ship is shot. It's rammed. Everything's shooting at everything. I mean, look at all this damage that's on my ship. It's like ready to explode. But I get to activate first. That's the fun of being first. And the next turn is the end. So what ends up happening is this MC-75 kills this. Then this little guy kills that. And then it flies over here right into that really, really sweet danger spot that I can move all my B-wings into to bomb. And they're doing 2 damage each. And then my ship just dumps all the black dice that you'd ever really wanted into you all at the same time. Dead ship. Table. The rest of it basically is Ken shooting at Shara because he has nothing else to do. And he's 100% tabled, so if he dies from counter, it doesn't matter. One of the questions someone brought up during, I think it was a comment or it was on Discord or something like that. People were asking why Ken was using his bombers to shoot into my aces with counter. And for the most part, bombers are terrible against squadrons, but they're actually decent in great numbers against scatter aces because they're black dice. And you roll a black dice, more than likely 75% of the chance it should be a hit. Except for Ken in this game, which was like 90% misses somehow. He just finally hit that sweet spot of everything was going to be a blank. But it's 1 damage. So I have a 4 health scatter ace. Okay, I scatter the first one. Then every single hit after that, every single point of damage, I just take. I can't use my brace. I just take it. And then, so if you hit, it will take 4 plus, let's say it goes in between 2 rounds, 3 for the scatter. So that means you only need to shoot me 7 times. And, yeah, so 7 attacks between his Gazantes and all of his TIE bombers should be able to wipe out an ace if they're hit, regardless of their scatter aces. So that's why he did it. And then he could then like wait for me to burn out the scatter and then hit me with a TIE interceptor and I'm just dead. So it's like bomber hit, maybe burn out the scatter, interceptor, dead. That's what I think his reasoning was. And the faster he could kill out my fighters, the faster he can move on to my ship, which he missed. I didn't die, so, but like my counter wasn't doing anything anyway, so it didn't really matter. Let me see if there's any other points. I wasn't really feeling I was getting my points worth out of, I think we talked about this in the episode. I wasn't feeling like I was getting the points worth out of the 12 points I spent on Rapid, plus the B-Wings because they're expensive compared to just spending all that into A-Wings. Like I feel like that would have originally been better. But then the A-Wings, or sorry, the B-Wings became the hero at the end when they just wiped out that Arcaten and everything it had. So here we go for the final score. I wiped out pretty much all of the TIE Interceptors, and I think this might have been an error. I think this should have been 3 TIE Bombers. I don't think Ken had 6 on the field. I think he had 4. Most of my fighters got killed. MC-75 got killed, but all of Ken's ships that held him on the board, so 400. Again, superior positions, no points scored. It might just be the way we play, but I pick the objective to be based just on positioning and not for tokens. So there's something like that. I had a 12-point bid to try to go first because I have to go first. I have to be able to move in. I have to be able to drop those B-Wings. This is not a second player fleet. I don't even remember what my objectives are. They're probably like surprise attack, contested outpost, and solar corona, to be honest. That's probably what my objective list for this was, because I don't have enough ships to do a lot of the other objectives, and I need to know where you are so I can jump across the field to kill you. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go to comments, see if any questions or comments about that, or about the bomber fighter split to try to avoid being pinned. Go ahead and ask them, and I will try to answer them. During the round, Kim didn't use gunnery teams to fire twice over the MC-75, but why? The MC-75 did attack the ISD with the front and one of the sides. Ken already answered this. Gunnery teams does not allow you to fire at the same ship twice. I think you're thinking about advanced gunnery. If you're the second player, you can just melt things. It is one of the best things when you have like an actual super heavy ship that can just laser through people. I was talking about this the other day. I think it was on our Discord. So if you're a member of Discords, I apologize. You're going to have to read this story again or hear me talk about this story. But back when I was playing Sloan in a tournament, I had a mean Kuwad boarding trooper, you know, the standard Sloan shenanigans. And someone outbid me, and they chose to go second. And I think they were trying to do... This is right after like all the nerfs to the flotilla, so they were trying to do like the Akbar farm type thing, and so I just went speed 3 right into them and lasered through an MC-80. I hit it. I flipped all of its tokens with boarding troopers, and then I used my fighters to exhaust out all their tokens. And then I just front shot a Kuwat twice into the side of it and just annihilated it. It was pretty awesome. And then I just was double arcing out the front with gunnery teams with a Kuwat at close range into the rest of their ships to table them. It was a very fast game. Fun for me, probably not so much fun for the other player. Mosey says, by the way, Ken put the Arcaten in a great spot. I would beg to differ. Ken got lucky that he was on the station. Otherwise, it would have been rammed to death. We'll go back to take a look at that real fast. It barely was on the station. And if it wasn't on the station, it would have been taking ram damage from me and ram damage from itself every single turn. Arcatens, this ship specifically wants to be a flanker, and where it was sitting inside of this, in the greater picture of Armada, not necessarily a picture of this game, this ship is positioned improperly. The Star Destroyer should have been closer to the station, and the Arcaten should have been out here, being able to fly around here. If this Arcaten was out here and flying around and being able to fly off the table, you know, down the edge and just flank me, I would not have been able to kill it. I would not have been able to table Ken. So that's why I say that the Arcaten was in the improper spot. Because while it looked like it was pinning me in, I would have just chosen to ram into the Star Destroyer. It would just change the way I positioned coming in to ram and stay where I'm at, while he's actually pinned in here with me. And this ship, when it moves here, it has this ship. Be right here. We're at blue range. I can Sato into you. If you go try to move around me now, speed 3 only gets you to about here. So then I can Sato into you, and I get a Sato into you twice. Because you're going to activate. I'm going to activate, and then I get to activate again first. But if this ship was out here, it would have been here. It still would have been able to kill this ship. And then it would have been able to fly over here, survive, or fly around the back edge and survive, where it was sitting directly inside of this whole brawling scrum between his Star Destroyer that's pinning him in, my ships that are pinning him in, and then his Gazantes end up pinning him in as well. It's stuck. It's going to die. So that's my opinion. Did I transition? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, advanced gunnery and gunnery teams are almost the same but different, and they're not friends with each other, so it's terrible to have both of them on the same ship. I really wish that they fixed that during 1.5 changes to objectives and clarifications on things, but it was not. Not much you can do about that. Okay, so let's see. Moving forward this week for Ion Radio, because there doesn't seem to be any other major questions right now. Tomorrow, we're excited. We have another episode of Legion that's coming out. So that is pretty exciting. This one is filmed at what we describe as Studio C, which is Ken's house. So it might actually be the only episode that we end up really recording there, because Ken's going to be in the process of moving. So then we'll have my place is my apartment, Studio A. Studio B was the basement studio. Studio C is Ken's basement. Studio D is where we're currently filming in my new place. And then Studio E will be Ken's place in a little bit. But that has nothing to do with the Legion video. It's a fun list. This was, for those that are in the up and up with Legion, this was recorded before they dropped the big rules change, point change, everything like that. That was earlier this month. We had just recorded. It was like a week before, which is what it is. So it is technically the old points. It would have been actually an even more exciting game, because almost all the units that we used and played got changes to be better, because Ken's playing the Imperial, I'm playing the Rebel, and all of our heroes and troopers would have been far better if we were playing on the rule range. So we'll have to do a rematch later on, because why not just play with updated rules? But we had already had it recorded, so we were going to release it. Then I'm really excited to give spoilers for our episode this week. This is been a long time coming. It's something that I've been wanting to fly since they first came out. And your spoiler, so you can start thinking about what it's going to be, is I cannot legally make this fleet by myself, which really limits what it is, because I can almost make any single fleet that I've ever designed by myself. So I had to borrow some things from Ken to make it. You're probably going to only ever see it flown on this channel, because no one else is insane enough to have enough to properly fly this list. And so we just made it into a Star Wars Armada meme fleet list. So we both have fleets that I don't even know how I'm going to really do a backseat, because it's hi, these are both garbage lists. And they're fun to play. Ken and I had a blast. You can tell we had a blast. It was one of the weirder games that we've ever played, and I cannot wait for you guys to watch it. We're almost done with this season, which seems crazy. And then we'll be moving on to the second. This year has gone by really, really fast. So, okay. If anyone else has anything, go ahead and throw it in the comments. I'm going to do probably a final pass and just a little bit more rambling, and then probably going to call it a night. The time change working on night shift has really thrown me off. It always does. It's just not fun. My body doesn't know normally what time it is, and then when you change that time, it really doesn't know what it is. So, Musi, very good reasoning with the Architect point. I really do enjoy these episodes. I feel my last Armada games, my Command Isles planning has improved because of all the experience I'm getting. Well, thank you very much. That's one of the reasons why we do this, to help you. And one of the reasons why I do Backseat is because we play the game. You guys see the game. Then we do an after-action report based on what we remember from the battle, but not necessarily watch the battle. And then I edit all the videos, and I watch like every single thing like 20 times because of editing process. So I kind of have a view of it, especially like this above shot that we show you, and then I can talk more about it. So I'm glad that it helps, and I'm glad that you're enjoying watching it. My Gazanti Swarm. God. So I've already done a Gazanti Swarm, so that's not it. If you go back, that's in, I think, the 30 range before we switched over to the, I'm going to check now. That was a Vader fleet. That was a long time ago. Yeah, but I've already done the Gazanti Swarm and pretended that the Gazanti Flotilla rules didn't exist, and that was a weird, fun game. Man, I can't believe how long ago things were. That was before, I believe, the 1.5 change. Yeah, that was. Wow. That was episode 21. That was like decades ago. Man, time goes by so fast. So it's not that, but that was a good guess. Wait till you see it. You're gonna laugh with me. It's a blast. It really, really is a blast. No, that's not even it either. You're just gonna have to wait. I'm not gonna give any more spoilers because I just want you to see the picture that Ken's gonna post on Wednesday of the fleets, and then you're gonna be like, "Wow." Trust me. Okay, so I've given you a bit of a heads up of what we're doing this week, and we'll be doing Backseat next week as well. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and hopefully you've enjoyed all of our other stuff that we're putting out there. Big shout out, like always, to all of the people on our Patreon. They help support our channel. We try to get their list in as we can, and it helps. We're still moving toward trying to save for better quality cameras. Cameras are crazy expensive, and just other things. We're making upgrades you can see each season. We do have for season 3 a big upgrade that we're making, and I think you guys are going to like it, so we're looking forward to being able to show you guys that. So yeah, big shout out to all of our Patreons and everyone that has subscribed and watches our channel. I'm going to call it a night here, though. So thank you very much for joining me. Like always, it's been fun. This is the Backseat Admiral. I'm John, and this has been Ion Radio.